First off, immediately, the Warriors are in a tough spot early in this series, coming off a physical 7-game battle versus the Houston Rockets, and now, immediately, you must fly to Minnesota for Game 1 tomorrow already. Meanwhile, in Round 1, the Timberwolves cooked the Lakers with ease. They are well rested and ready to go. The fatigue factor is heavily in their favor. I think one of my worries for the Warriors is I don't trust their depth as much as Minnesota. They heavily relied on Buddy Hield and Brandon Podziemski in their victories, and they deserve their props, but also they are prone to inconsistent play. In wins versus Houston, Buddy averaged 16.8 points, 51% from 3 on 8 attempts per game, and Brandon averaged 14.8 points while making 3 threes per game. Are they capable of doing that against a better team, a better offensive team? And still, Minnesota is great defensively. Also, in the 3 losses versus Houston, Buddy only averaged 3 points and Brandon only averaged 6 points. Draymond also needs to be an offensive threat more in this series. You saw in that Game 7 against Houston, him just hitting a few shots and being a willing, confident driver changed that game. But for most of the series, he was lost offensively, killing the spacing, not looking at the basket, not really looking to drive, but they got away with it because Houston is not a great offense, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league, and overall their star play with Jalen Green and Şengün was pretty inconsistent from a shot-making aspect. Against Minnesota, you're not going to get the same leeway. Post All-Star break, they were ranked 3rd in offensive rating, only behind the Celtics and Thunder. They finished the regular season ranked 4th in three-point percentage as well. Overall, I trust Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo more than Buddy Podziemski and Moody. That's a big deciding factor in this series because the Warriors will force the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands to force shots somewhere else, and the same goes the other way. Instead of Steph and Jimmy isolating, they will dare the others to step up. And whose supporting cast do you trust more? In my opinion, I'm going with Minnesota. But as you guys know, just watching the first round, that can change very quickly. I think one of the biggest advantages that Minnesota has as a team going up against anyone is their small ball lineup is still very, very large. Like, they're not really a small ball lineup per se. Anthony Edwards, you got Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid. Naz Reid and Julius Randle, that's not really the smallest front court. And you look at the Warriors lineup, they're going to be at a size disadvantage, just like the Houston series. So once again, Minnesota should be winning the rebounding battle. And that lineup for Minnesota that I mentioned earlier played 22 minutes versus the Los Angeles Lakers, was a plus 27, plus 58.6 net rating, killed it offensively, 138.1 offensive rating, 79.5 defensive rating as well. I've seen a lot of people bring up the fact that the Warriors are 3-1 versus Minnesota this season. I don't think there's much to take away from that other than the fact that Steph Curry seems to have their number. He averaged 28.8 points, 7.5 assists per game in 4 games. But something worth mentioning is 3 of the 4 games happened in 2024. And as you know, to begin the year, Minnesota was a shell of themselves. And then the new year happened and they found their way post All-Star break. And there's only one matchup in 2025, and it's also in January, pretty early. However, in 17 minutes, the lineup of Steph Curry, Gary Payton, Buddy Hield, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green had a plus 33.4 net rating, 136.1 offensive rating, 102.7 defensive rating. So it's safe to say you insert Jimmy Butler for Jonathan Kuminga, they should have the edge in terms of the starting lineup. Because Minnesota's starting lineup has played 3 games versus the Warriors, 41 minutes, and they're only producing a plus 0.6 net rating. And what do you know? In the 4 games versus the Warriors, the lineup that has been working is a variation of the small ball lineup that they have. Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, and Naz Reid, plus 27 net rating. I think a big swing factor for Minnesota is if they can win the minutes with Rudy Gobert on the court versus the starting lineup of the Warriors, because one of the biggest things the Warriors are going to try to attack is Rudy Gobert in drop coverage. Or even when he's not in drop coverage and they try to play him above the perimeter, they're going to try to take advantage of that by driving past him or passing it and getting the T-Wolves in rotation. But honestly, I'm not really worried about the defense too much for Minnesota. You can only do so much against Steph Curry. He's going to have breakout games. I think Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they're going to make him work offensively. It's not just going to be an easy 30 points. Jimmy Butler is going to take over here and there, but honestly, it's really about the other guys. If they have a hot shooting series, it's going to be tough to beat the Warriors. But I would say I'm worried about Rudy Gobert offensively. I think his finishing is very inconsistent around the rim. There was games versus the Lakers where he wasn't effective on the glass, and I think the Warriors are a way better rebounding team. I also worry about Jaden McDaniels coming back down to earth offensively because he was a huge part in that series victory in round one. But the problem is Luka Doncic is not playing defense on the Warriors. They're a way better defensive team than the Lakers. Also, Julius Randle shot 39% from three. It was one of his better shooting seasons where he shot 34% from three. However, we know he's prone to having bad shooting slumps. I mean, over his career in the playoffs for the New York Knicks, he shot 28% from three. But overall, he's going to be a key factor in this series because he's going to have a lot of mismatches that he can take advantage of. And you saw in round one, in the Rockets' victories, Şengün was getting the better of those mismatches. And then in losses, he was missing easy shots over smaller defenders. Julius Randle is going to have those same opportunities. And whether he can make the Warriors pay for their small defense is a big storyline for me because I can see it going either way. I think he could have a cold series where he's turning the ball over, forcing up bad turnaround fadeaways instead of going into the smaller defender and things like that. I just think Julius Randle is probably going to be prone to more bad games, more inefficient games versus the Warriors than the Los Angeles Lakers. Warriors are just a smarter and tougher defensive team. So that means Anthony Edwards is going to have to be even better than he was in round one. In game one versus the Lakers, he shot 36%. Now he had 9 assists as well, but most likely if he shoots 36% versus the Warriors, they're probably not going to win. And then in game 5, same story, 26%. If he has those inefficient games, I doubt Minnesota is going to be able to overcome them as they did versus the Los Angeles Lakers. So yeah, that's basically all the thoughts I have so far on this series. I feel like Minnesota's going to win. That's my gut feeling, but I can see it going either way. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to tell you, oh, it's going to be guaranteed that Minnesota wins, but that's just how I'm feeling. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below.